Jerry Cooper. Jerry Cooper. Jerry Cooper. Don't see a Jerry Cooper. Miro Wagner. Miro Wagner. Miro, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Hi. Thanks to all the people who came down and who are watching on TV. I think it's really great. I've written a short story I'd like to read. Once, there was a house called Toronto. It was a big house with a lot of diverse families in it. It was well equipped with all sorts of useful amenities and people enjoyed them. The most controversial thing for the residents was the basement. There were some unsightly columns and pillars which were unpopular, but remained because some felt the house could not stand without them. There was the vehicle registration pillar, the land transfer pillar, the property tax pillar, and so on. One day, a contractor came and told everyone they could get rid of all these foundations. Some were skeptical, but he promised them that everything they loved about the house would stay the same. After he had knocked down the first column, he told people the house was not stable. It was going to collapse. He assured them this was a pre-existing issue and not his fault. Don't worry, he said. Don't worry, he said. The problem is just that your house is too heavy. He went about solving this issue by first selling the fridge and stove. The people who cooked were outraged, but those who didn't said, "Why should we suffer so you can cook? We prefer to eat in restaurants." Then he sold the tables and chairs. More residents became outraged, but still there were some who said, "We can just stand." After all, the contractor had not yet eliminated the land transfer pillar. The residents had now forgotten they were promised no major changes, and he convinced them that furniture was a small price to pay for all this improvement. He announced that he wanted to get rid of the television, the shower, the laundry machine, the toilet, and the beds. They were all too heavy. Now more people were starting to get upset. They told him that they wanted to keep these things, but the contractor answered, "This is what you told me to do. We have a 4-year contract." The families were now scared of what might be left after 4 years. What is even the point of living in a house without these things, they asked. They decided to stand up to the contractor. They hoped desperately that it wasn't too late to save the home they'd spent so long building. They also worried that waiting and hiring a new contractor wouldn't be enough. After all, it is much easier to destroy something than it is to rebuild it. Nevertheless, they were going to try. They didn't know if they could avert catastrophe, but their house meant so much to them, they couldn't just sit around and wait. Thanks.
Councillor Davis, you got a question?
Do you think pillars are nice to have or must have?
I think they are important for a house.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Sarah Diamond. Sarah Diamond.
One extra copy if she wants to put up.
Sarah Diamond, you have 3 minutes.
Mayor Ford and councillors, I speak to you today as the president of the Ontario College of Art and Design University. We do not receive funding from the City of Toronto. For 135 years, our students, alumni, and faculty have helped to weave the fabric of Toronto's world-class visual arts galleries, media art, community arts, design, digital culture, and cultural tourism, contributing to the $9 billion of cultural GDP in Toronto. Our students come from every part of this great city, from Etobicoke, Scarborough, North York. They arrive here from all over the world to live and learn in a metropolis that has become a cultural beacon. For the sake of the next generation, we believe that the arts in the city must remain a public-private partnership. Public money, in particular that of the Toronto Arts Council, or the city's contribution to the spectacularly successful Nuit Blanche acts as leverage, creating the infrastructure or providing the upfront catalyst that enables artists to act as creative contributors and in turn produce more value. We need to think of this investment like a form of early-stage startup funding, as seed money or as a proportion contribution to a budget that in turn allows the cultural economy to pay back thousands of times beyond the initial investment made. Torontonians spend $4.8 billion on cultural goods and services, and Nuit Blanche alone brought in 138,000 of out-of-town visitors, in turn contributing 34.7 million of economic benefit. In the digital era, the art and design talent pool of individual talent feeds the heated digital media and ICT industries and the Ontario Technology Corridor. Screen-based industries alone contribute $1.1 billion a year to the largest cluster here in the country and $12.2 billion in GDP. We need the public portion of investment to keep those jobs here. Of course, it is legitimate and necessary for the city to review delivery mechanisms and institutions, look for efficiencies, amalgamate and modernize services, and eliminate redundancies, to find budget savings and to ensure quality. However, the City of Toronto should tread cautiously in eroding arts funding, in particular the Community Partnership Investment Program, for fear that our city will see a flight of both its arts, talent, and many others. Not only our elites, those who rely on the arts to bring meaning to their daily lives, or as the wellspring of talent for their companies. A city devoid of the arts will not have the capacity to compete on the world stage. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Vaughan. Councillor Vaughan.
Thank you.
Councillor Wong.
One of the issues we struggle with in the ward, because OCAD is in the ward that I represent, are the support structures required for students to pursue studies at OCAD and bring their talent to the city. Housing and transit are two of the issues which KPMG says we should walk away from. I'm just curious as to what the impact of poor transit and poor housing would have on your ability to attract the best and the brightest in the visual arts field.
You know, I think you've had the opportunity to hear from a lot of very eloquent young student leaders who've spoken about those material effects on their lives, and perhaps I'll let those words stand. I'm sure Council has heard them.
In terms of attracting quality staff and teaching to the university, what is it that the city needs to do to provide you with assistance to attract the best and the brightest to teach our students?
Well, you know, it's interesting because the Warhol economy has been quoted significantly.
Wong Tam, thank you. Sorry, ma'am. It's 1 minute. Sorry. Councillor Wong Tam. Councillor Davis after Councillor Wong Tam.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm interested in hearing your last answer. Can you please complete that?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because the author of the Warhol economy, in fact, talks about the crisis in New York City of the arts, because artists have left the city. They can't afford to live there. And she calls for a whole set of public policies that, in fact, are really similar, Your Honour, to those that are suggested in the Creative Capital Gains, which was an excellent piece of work that the city under your leadership actually has prepared in terms of the arts. So I think we should be careful in citing that author unless we're really willing to follow her advice, which is essentially a program for supporting arts and public investment in the arts in New York City, and including public housing for artists. And you know, what I'm saying is that there's a relationship between private funding and public funding. Public money in Canada and in our city attracts private investment. And I think we need to look at the 17 times the value that, in fact, that investment brings.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
I was just going to ask you about the capital gains report and the recommendations in it. I presume that your organization has responded to the report or provided input on that report?
Oh yeah, we were part of the the consultations that I believe came up with the recommendations. And, you know, it looks at a really comprehensive program for sustaining the capacity of the arts in this city. It recognizes the need to strengthen the cultural industries sector in this city, as well as public investment in the arts.
And you're aware that City Council approved it unanimously?
Yeah, as they should have. I think that was a very smart decision on the part of Council.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no other questions of you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor.
Hi, Jay.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
So, Sarah, you're a city visionary. So you're a good person to ask for some advice on key priorities as we go through this fiscal sustainability exercise. What are the key priorities for arts and culture?
Well, you know, I think I listened to Jeff Melanson earlier, and I think it's fair to take a hard look at where the money is invested. You know, you need task forces to do that work. You need a deep look at, you know, what is the public infrastructure? Can it be consolidated? How can it be managed? Are there new forms of management? Are there, in fact, efficiencies? So, you know, my argument here is to really be very cautious, but to understand the importance of supporting individual artists and arts organizations, and to look at a city like New York, where, in fact, you know, they're now looking to Toronto in our policy, which is somewhat ironic, to make it a better place for artists. So I think we should look at the creative capital gains. I think we know that we have huge pressures in this city, and there's a lot of good recommendations, in fact, that KPMG makes, I think, around areas of service, but we have to take time to look at those as a collective and look at how one decision impacts another.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.